Okay, hello everyone. This is just a quick tutorial on how to wire up these little amplifier boards. The kits for these are now available in the Whip Lab, so you can just go in there and grab one. And in the kit will be a few things that you see here. There will be a board itself. So this is one of the amplifier boards. It is a breakout board for the LM386 chip. And LM386, that's that right there. And it's an audio amplifier that is then broken out into these different connections on the board. The chip also has a simple volume control. This is a potentiometer that turns and lets you adjust the gain in the circuit. There also are these 4 pins here. You can kind of see them right there. And you can see that they're labeled. It says ground, ground, or GND, and then in for input and VCC. VCC is the voltage in, so that's your battery input. I don't think I can get this much closer and stay in focus, but those pins are what we'll be connecting to in this little tutorial. And then on the other side is a screw terminal, and this is where you will attach your speaker wires. So these 2 wires will go to your speaker, and again it's labeled, if you look, the left is labeled out and the right is labeled ground. So this is your signal and this is the ground for your speaker. Okay. You'll also have an audio input jack, and that is this. This is an 1/8 inch or 3.5 millimeter jack and lets you connect your computer or your phone, anything that uses an aux cable and make sound. You can connect there, and that'll bring input into your amplifier to be amplified. You'll also have some wires, so you'll have a set of jumper cables. These both have these port ends that allow you to connect them to other things, and they fit right on the pins of the amplifier. So you can just connect these to those pins, slide it on, and it makes a good solid connection to the amplifier. And these jumper cables is how we will be connecting the what do you call this? The audio input. And the last thing that is in your kit, which is, where is mine? Did I not take one of these out? Hold on 1 second. Losing my mind. Here, you'll have something that looks kind of like this, and this is a battery clip, and this is how you'll connect the 9-volt battery to the circuit. And we'll use the jumper cables to connect this to the board as well. Yours might look a little different than this, but same principles apply. So the first thing we want to do is cut these jumper cables, because we're going to use half of them to connect, we're going to use 1/2 to connect to the battery, and then the other half to connect to the audio input. So I forgot to mention that this whole tutorial will be done without using a soldering iron and without using wire strippers. So this would be a lot easier if we were soldering things and using wire strippers to cut the wire, but I wanted to try to do a tutorial that would let you put this kit together at home with things that you have at home. So instead of wire strippers, which look like this, we'll be using scissors that look like this. So first thing to do is to cut these wires in half, and that leaves us with 2 pairs of wires, and we'll use these to connect the battery clip and the audio input. So I'm going to start by separating the wires a little bit so that we have access to both of them, and I will strip the hard plastic casing off of both ends of the wire. We want to strip about 1 centimeter of the casing away to expose about 1 centimeter of the wire inside. And usually we wouldn't strip this much, but because we're not soldering, this will make it a lot easier to attach the cables if we have a decent amount of wire to work with. So what I do is just score the wire, and you can maybe see there that I've broken that plastic a bit, and then you can just use your fingers to pull it off. And I'll do the same thing on the other side with the black wire. Again, I'm going to just try to score without cutting the wires inside. It's hard. Just try to score that wire enough. And then I find that it helps to bend it to really break up that plastic, and then you can pull it off, and now we're left with 2 sides of wire with about 1 centimeter, a little more, of exposed wire. We're going to do the same thing on the battery clip. So my battery clip already has exposed wires, but just to stay with you, I'll cut those off. Again, score a little bit of the plastic, try not to cut it all the way through, and then bend it and pull that plastic shielding right off. There we go, you can see that there. And this is stranded wire. There's lots of little wires that make up the big wire, and we'll twist these together to form one wire later. But for the battery clip, you don't need to. So score the second wire, in this case the red one. Be careful not to cut through. Bend it to really break it apart, break it off, and then pull it away. And so now we have our battery clip with exposed wires there. We also have one of our jumper cables with exposed wires. And what we're going to do here is connect these. And you might think you want to connect them like this, but without a soldering iron, it's much better to connect them by twisting them like this. So I'm going to use the black wires together just to kind of keep it logical, and connect the black wire of the battery lead with the black wire on the wire jumpers. And all I'm going to do is twist it together, and twist it really tightly as many times as you can. And the goal here is to really enmesh these wires together. And so once you've twisted it a bit, it'll definitely stay together. I'm going to do the same thing with the other set of wires. Just twist them together really tight. And when you're done, these wires will be connected mechanically. And if you give them a little pull, they'll stay together. Now, I like using a piece of tape here, and I've got electrical tape, which is great, but you could also use Scotch tape. And here I'm just going to cut a little piece of tape off and use that to kind of keep the joint in place. And again, like, electrical tape is nice because it'll insulate the wires again, but you don't need electrical tape. You could do the same thing with Scotch tape or any kind of tape. So I've just kind of used a piece of tape to cover one joint, and then I'm going to use that same piece of tape to just kind of cover the other joint and lock everything together nice and tight. And then, that's a pretty good bond, and that's probably not going to break, and good enough for testing for sure. Okay, so how do we connect this to the board? Well, again, on our board, it has labels, and labels are ground, ground, in, and VCC. This is our battery connector. We want to connect the red from the battery clip to VCC, and the black from the battery clip to ground. So The red in our battery clip is, for me, connected to this white wire. Your wires will be different colors. Just keep track of, your colors. Whatever one is attached to this red wire is the one that you want to go into the VCC here. So I'm going to attach this to that pin, and then I'm going to take the other wire, the black wire, which is connected to the black wire of the battery clip, and attach that to one of the ground pins on these amplifier board. So I'll just use the last one. So the battery is now connected VCC to the first pin, or the bottom pin on your screen, and the black pin, or the black wire is connected to the ground pin or the top pin on the board. So it's like that. The two middle pins are open, and that's where we'll be putting the audio input jack. So same kind of deal for the audio input jack. If you look at the jack itself, you'll see that there's 3 legs or 3 tabs to connect wires to, and they have a little hole in them. I'm not sure if you can see that in the video, but there's a little hole, and we'll use that hole to kind of feed the wires through and twist them so that they stay in place. We're not going to use the last tab. We're just going to use the first one and the second one. The first one is going to be our signal, and that's what we'll attach to the in. And then the second one will be our ground, and we'll attach that to the remaining ground pin on the amplifier board. So to prepare for that, we will completely separate those 2 wires, and I'll show you why later. And once again, use our scissors to simply score the plastic coating such that you can bend it and pull the shielding off, revealing the bare wire. I'm going to do that on the white one as well. Sorry for the focus. Just score it, bend it, and pull that casing off like that. Okay, now for these you do want to twist the wires up, and because the wires are separate, you can just twist the wire as you're holding it, and it'll twist it into one tight kind of singular wire, and that's good because we need to feed it. We need to feed it through the tiny holes on the tab of that audio input. So twist up both wires, twist them well so that they're easy to kind of feed through. Hopefully you can see that. I'm going to use the white wire as the signal or the in. So here's the audio input, and I'm going to try to feed the white wire through the hole in the tab, and you can kind of see that there, hopefully. And then bend it down over, and I like twisting it a bit to just kind of keep it on that tab as best as possible. And this is sort of the most finicky part, because you'd really want to solder this, and when you get into the whip lab you can solder it. For this one we're going to put it on the second tab, same deal, bend it over and twist it. Sorry, I don't know if that was in focus at all, but come on. Yeah. All right, so both wires are now twisted onto their respective tabs. Again, that first tab nearest to the input jack is signal, or your audio, and then the second your audio input, and then the second wire is ground. Now again, this isn't a good connection, and this is the least functional part of this, of using this without a soldering iron. But I'm going to take a little piece of tape and tape it not in a permanent way, but just in a way so that those joints kind of stay together as best as possible. And then you can solder it when we get into the whip lab. I would just put a point of solder on both of these quickly to keep them together. But if you don't have a soldering iron or you've never soldered before, that's totally fine. And we'll just tape it, kind of tape it hard so that hopefully that mechanical connection, is retained and kind of held there by the tape. So you can kind of see what I did there. You can always cut that tape off and solder them later. So again, we have signal on white and ground on black, and we're going to connect that to our amplifier board. If we take a look at the amplifier board again, we can see that in is middle right and ground is middle left. Ground is black, in is white, so I'm going to do my best to push these headers onto the pins, and there we go. So now we have the input jack in the middle connected to the middle pins and the battery clip connected to the outer two pins. It's really important that you wire the battery correctly. If you wire the battery backwards, this board will almost certainly blow or just become hopelessly damaged. So make sure that the red wire of the battery clip is connected to the VCC pin, and the black wire of the battery clip is connected to ground. So just double check that before you use it. Okay, the last thing we're going to do is connect a speaker to this screw terminal block. If your screws are already wound down, you might want to take a screwdriver and rotate them to the left so they are in the up position, because that will open these two kind of doors in the screw terminal, and we can stick a wire into those doors that can connect to the speaker. And once we stick wire into those doors and screw them down, then they'll be stuck in there and it'll hold tight. So you should have a random piece of wire. Here I have a black and red wire, and again I'm going to score the ends. Oops, I just cut through that one. That's a good, that will happen, so don't be overly frustrated. I'm going to cut a little bit less off of the wire casing off, because we just won't need that much, and just pull the casing off, and then again it reveals the bare wire. I'm going to do that for the other side here. Score it, fold it, pull it. Yay, so now we have two ends of our wire there. I'm going to do the same thing while we're at it on the other side of these wires. You might have wires that look different in your kit. That's okay. I mean, any wire would work for this. We're just looking for a connection between the amplifier and the speaker. So once again, just score it a little bit with the scissors. I'm going to do both at the same time, getting greedy. And then pull that off, and there we go. So now we have this wire stripped on both sides, and I'll kind of twist these together a little bit, because it's nice to have one solid wire to go into the amplifier. But the process here is pretty simple. If you look at the amplifier, there's an out, and that will be our red, you can see there, and ground, that will be our black. We'll just use those kind of color conventions. It doesn't really matter. And stick those under the doors in the screw terminal. So if this one got bent. Let me see if I can show that a little better. So here's the screw terminal. I'm going to stick the red wire under that little, in that little space under that ledge. I don't know if you can see that. I hope you can see that. Same thing for the black. And then once they're in there, just kind of hold them in while you take a screwdriver and screw the screws down, and you'll feel once the screw is tight. And that, there we go. That's one, and then here's the second one. And that will hold the wires in that little screw terminal. And if you pull them up, one came off. So that one fell out before I screwed it down. So I just have to take up that screw. Sorry, I can't see anything. Put this wire back in there. There we go. That should work. And then screw it down. All right. That should work. All right. So we have two wires attached there, and the last thing we have to do is to attach the other sides of the wire to a speaker. There's lots of ways you can do that depending on your speaker. So this speaker here has the terminals there, you can see, plus and minus. I've already attached wires to it, so the the holes are covered, so I won't be able to kind of thread the holes and twist like we did before, but hopefully this will work. I'm just going to twist these up a little bit and just kind of loop it around here a little so it kind of holds, and then tape it. Again, this would be an easy thing to solder and would make your life 100 times easier. But let's see if we can hold that there for a second. I'll take a piece of tape and tape that down. Now, I'm probably going to mess this up. Yep. So again, somehow hook it on. Hopefully your speaker has an easier way than mine. This is why solder is so nice, because it just gives you that, just kind of bonds metal together. So it gives you a perfect little connection. All right, let's see. Come on, just work. I'm not good. This micro stuff, soldering, it's kind of hilarious that I went into electronics because I'm not good with this fine motor control stuff. So bear with me. Maybe it's best if I make a little hook like that in the wire and hook it on here. And then tape that hook. Yep. Okay, that may have worked. And then we'll do the same over here. Create a little hook. Hook that on the terminal. I'm going to bend it over to try to keep it in place momentarily while I, oops. This is probably painful to watch, but sorry. Hook that over momentarily while I tape it. And of course, I have a tiny little piece of tape here. Let's see if I can make that work. You probably can't see. It's probably for the best. All right, let's hope that works. You'll probably find a better way, like if you have a little alligator clip or something, that'll be a way better way of connecting to the speaker. But again, you work with what you have, and once you get a hang of electronics and get a few simple tools, you can actually do quite a bit at home. So, okay, let's plug this in. And I'll take my 9-volt battery, make sure you plug it in the right way. And then once you plug it in, you'll see a light go on the amplifier. Yay, that's a good sign. And now we have to add an audio input to this jack. So I've got this little synthesizer here that's plugged in. And I'm going to plug this into the jack. And hopefully we will get some sound. Hopefully. Oh, there we go. So I needed to turn up the volume. So now the volume is up, and we've got a functioning speaker. And it's being driven by this amplifier. There's no solder whatsoever. And yeah, I mean, I think that's it. Incredible. Okay, if you have questions, email me. Hopefully that was clear, or at least a little bit clearer than the last one. And yeah, later.